Hello guys, good morning. Is my voice audible? If yes, please press yes in chat. Great. So myself Bhavesh Daswani and I am full stack developer and I am your host for today. So first of all, welcome to you all for this meetup. Let me give you a brief intro about Laravel Ahmedabad community. Our first session was on November 2018. From then onwards, we are having continuous meetup every month. The community is run by the developer for developer. We do not do any promotion activity like hire any dedicated person and tell them to do promotion. This community is managed by developer for developers. I as a developer feel very happy when I contribute to community as a volunteer, speaker and host. And there are overall 8 communities in India that are Laravel Live Nagpur, Laravel Live Surat, Laravel Live Rajkot, Punjab, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Bhopal, Chennai. This is all about community overview. Let me tell about today's session and flow. Today we are having two sessions. First session is on efficient Laravel development tips by Mitul and second is on Laravel front-end development with Vue.js by Abbas. And in the last, we will have the question answer session. If you have any query, you can put in the chat section. Our team is watching the chat section, and all your query will be answered after the all the sessions are finished. That is in the Q&A section. So, before going into the first session, I would like to say something. I was about 1.5 years of experience in Laravel, and at that time co- I what you said a Laravel Ahmedabad community, and there I have given this speech, and my attendees were like having 6 months to 5 years of experience. So you can see like I was only having 1.5 years of experience, and at that time I given this speech. So the main motto is like the contribution. If you can contribute to the community, you are most welcome. And today I will share you the speaker link where you can fill the form. I have provided you the speaker form which you can fill, and we can select you as a speaker in the July meetup. My aim is to select you as an speaker for the next July meetup. Okay, let now move to the our first session. That is about efficient Laravel development tips by Mitul. Let me introduce him. Mitul is an active member of Laravel Surat. He is an organizer. He has over 8 years of experience in Laravel, and he has done many open source contribution, and his most popular open source contribution is Laravel generator. So now I'm handling to Mitul. Mitul, please you can unmute your mic and say.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhavesh. Hello, everyone. Uh, yeah, let me share my screen. Guys, let me know if you can see my screen. Bhavesh, for the same, please.
No, we cannot share your screen. Wait a second.
Yep, sure.
Okay, your screen is now visible.
Okay, can you make it please full screen?
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, today's our topic is efficient Laravel development tips. So I'm going to show you exactly 10 tips, like how we can, make our Laravel development efficient. Some of the few hidden things that we don't know about Laravel. So yeah, that is what my aim of today. And some of the tips are related to database optimization. Some of them are related to development optimization, like how we can write a few code and make something happen. So yeah, let's get started. So yeah, about me, I think Bhavesh already given my introduction. I'm working like 7 or 8 years in Laravel. I have created 10 plus open source of packages, and you can find like my packages over here, uh, where you can see the open source contribution of whatever packages I have created. github.com/Infiom Labs, and this is one of the most popular package which I have created. And after this meetup, I am going to make this repo public, which is currently private, where you will be able to see the code of the current tips. So if you have some questions or something like that, you can go and check the code on this repo. So yeah, let's move to our first tip. So the first tip that I want to show you, like generally what we do, we use die and dump a lot, right? So what we do, we retrieve all the users, something like this. Users is equal to user colon colon all and dd users. But what you can do instead is you can do like user colon colon all and directly dd. So that is what you can do. I was doing mostly like, when I was working Laravel, mostly doing something like this. But then like I got this, and right now without any declaring variables or something like that, I'm able to see that. And while debugging, it helps a lot. Like I can go to any query and just do dd and it will just work. So yeah, that is the first thing. Let's move to our second tip. So this one was like how you can create your custom asset function, and how you can minimize the code. So what we generally do, we have lots of assets, lots of libraries and something like that, right? So how we normally use asset function is like this. Like we declare a script, then we write src is equal to asset, then we provide a full path from the public assets lib js bootstrap.mean.js, right? But what happens, so say like sometimes the we decide like I want to rename this libs folder to say like libraries, or say third party libraries, right? Then what I need to do, I need to rename, or I need to go and refactor all of my script tags like wherever I have written this path. So instead of that, what you can do, you can declare one function which I will say like libjs. So I will say like library.js, and I will provide a path. I will provide a secure function which will be by default null, and then I can append a path with this path assets lib js and then path. And then what I can do, I can call then asset function app url asset, then I can give a path and I can give a secure function. So once you declare this function, you will be able to use something like this lib.js and then directly bootstrap.mean.js. So at any point of time, if I am renaming my libs folder to anything like libraries or third party libraries, right? I just need to refactor this single one line. I don't need to go to all of my layouts, all of my files where I have included this file and rename them all. Instead of that, I just need to rename just a one line of code and all of my code will be still working. So this is very helpful when you are working with large projects and you have lots of assets. And if you are very early stage where you are refactoring a lot. So yeah, let's move to our 30. So this is something that I want to show you practically as well. We do eagle loading a lot. Like when I'm returning user, I want to retry all of my posts, so I don't need to go and every time, retry a post of single user. So what it will do, it will retry all of my users and all of it's my post in just two queries. So the problem over here is sometimes what we need, we don't need the whole post object. So say I am using title only and ID only, right? So what you can do instead, you can write, sorry, you can write something like this: user colon colon with post, and then you can specify colon and specify the column names. So what it will do, it will retrieve only these fields from the database. And when it is useful actually is, so say like you are loading a lot of data, or your model, so, so say your post model, it has a body column, and the body column, we know in the post it has a lot of data, and when you retrieve a lot of data, it takes a time from the database side as well, then it takes a memory in your application. But ideally you don't need that field at all. You just need title, you just want to display title, you don't or you are not going to display the body, right? So why we should retry the full model, like created it, updated it, body, and bunch of other things, that whatever you have, like slug or whatever, right? So instead of that, what you can do, you can just specify the column over here which you want to retry, and you can do that. So let's see it in real practical way. So yeah, so this is something which is a traditional code. So if I go here and if I go to eagle loading, this is what we do generally. uh, I'm not sure if my screen is visible properly, or need to zoom it. Okay, let me zoom it a little bit. Okay, so what we do generally, we write user with post, and then we do like or yeah, we just return those users. So what it will do, it will fire two queries: select star from users, and then select star from post, where post dot user id in this user ids. But what we do, like what we need, even this says as a hint, like use select star only if you need all columns from the table, right? But we don't need these all columns in the table, I just need id and title, right? So what I can do, if I just comment out this line, if I uncomment this, and then if we do a query, it will just retrieve id and title, which only things that I need, right? So this is how you can optimize your data when you are retrieving it. If you are loading a lot of data, then it will save a time from database side as well, and in your application memory as well. So yeah, let's move to our next step. So this is something interesting that you guys will find. What we generally do, we do a query like this: user colon colon, where name is Mithul, where email is me@mithul.me, and retrieve the first record. This is how we specify all the where conditions. But what Laravel provides is you can actually combine more than one variable. So I can say something like user colon colon, where name and email is Mithul and me@mithul.me, and then retrieve the first record. It will still work. So if you have two or three conditions, then you can combine this way, and you don't need to write two where statements at all. It can be combined into one statement only. So I think this is pretty fine. We don't need to see the demo. If you can try it your own hand. Let's move to our next step. So this is something interesting, really interesting, and I really found it useful in using recent days. There is a one function called toBase on every eloquent model. So sometimes what happens is like we don't need actually much eloquent functions. Like where eloquent is really good is you can use to retrieve data from the database. Then you can have a muted attributes on that, you can have relationships on that. So that kind of way it is really useful. But we don't need these all features all the time, right? Like we are not using muted attributes on every single model that we are using. We do not loading relationships every time when we retrieve the records. And whenever we are writing something like this, users is equal to users colon colon all, what it actually do, it will go to the database, it will retrieve all the records. Then from the retrieve data, it will create a model of the user object. It will not be a simple raw object of the php, it will be a object of user model, right? And then it will return you all the users in one collection. So here, when we are preparing the object of some model rather than the pure PHP object, of course, it needs some time as well as it needs some memory. So just imagine if you are loading some data to print a PDF where you got 10,000 of records, right? It will need a time to prepare 10,000 objects of user class, this class, which is our model class, right? So instead of that, and just imagine if you are not using any muted attribute, any relationship, any that kind of thing, right? So it is not actually utilizing anything of like the eloquent, right? So what you can do instead of, you can write something like this: user colon colon to base and then get. So what it will do, it will just retrieve all the data from the database, but it will not prepare the user model object. It will just give you the raw data object of std class, which we are coming with the php. That is just retrieve if you are doing some single row query, right? But the advantage is you can still use all the possible query parameters of eloquent, like where name, where email, something like that, right? So let's see it practically. uh, yeah, let's go here. And this is our to base function where we are doing user colon colon all. And then if we do this, we can see that it is preparing a 10 models, right? So we are loading a 10 models of user, right? And if we do a dump of that, if you see, this is the array of user object. It is not a simple object, it is the object of user model, right? And now instead of that, if I comment out this and if I do this, and if we reload our page again, right? If you see, it is just a pure object, it is not a user model object, right? So whenever you are loading a bunch of data, it will save a lot of time. If I comment out this as well, and then if we reload a page, you will see we are not actually creating any of the model object. Our models are zero, right? To show that practically, I have written one blog as well, which I will be sharing, where if you see, this is this is where we are loading 10,000 users, and the memory over here you can see is 35 MB. The time is 1.49 seconds, because when you retrieve 10,000 records from the database, of course, preparing objects of 10,000 user models, it will take a bit of the time for PHP, right? But once I do this query, user to base and get, then you see we are only loading 20 MB of memory rather than 35. So it saves a lot of memory, and the time is significantly decreased from 1.49 second. It is just 275 milliseconds, right? So it is highly optimized, and whenever you are loading bunch of data, and if you are not using any of the eloquent features like muted attribute, relationship, any of the features, other features, right, then it is really useful. Even you can see the full video which I have attached over here, you can go here. So yeah, but yeah, this will be very helpful if you are printing some PDF or if you are loading lot of data into the memory. So that's all about to base function. Let's move to our next tip, which is append. So this is one hidden property on the model that you can utilize. So whenever you write to array, right, these muted attributes are not loaded. You need to load them manually. So say like if we see it practically, if I go here, and this is what our code is, append to model. So I am retrieving user. I am writing user colon colon first. Then I am doing user to array. So what it is printing? ID, first name, last name, email verified at, and timestamps. Right? It is not actually printing full name, which is my muted attribute that I have defined on our user model over here. So this is the muted attribute that we have defined. So I want to retrieve a full name of user, which is the combination of first name and last name. But sometimes what we need when we do to array, we need all these muted attributes. So what you can do, you can go here and you can write something like protected, append, and full name, right? And then if I go here and if I refresh, you see it will append a full name. So whenever you have that kind of requirements where you want to append your muted attributes, some of your muted attributes, all of your muted attributes, then you can do something like this. You can use $append, and then you can specify whatever fields you want to do here, and then you can do it. So yeah, that is all about $append, and it will be really helpful if you are doing this. And let's move to the next step, which is with view function. This is very simple when you are using like few of the variables and you don't want to specify this kind of array. So I am retrieving user, which is user colon colon first. Then we generally pass data like this, user and user. At least I am passing data like this. But what I can do instead, if I have very simple variables, I can do something like this with user, and then I specify user. I don't need to specify the name of the key, which is here. I can directly do short function like this. And this is actually utilizing the magic method on the view factory. So this is how you can do this while you are using or you are passing some simple variables and you have less number of variables. Even this can be changed with if you are passing some more variables over here. But yeah, that is what you can do. The next is yeah, single source of cache key. I experience it a lot when I was doing a caching. So what generally happens? We write a code something like this, right? Why we do caching? Because we are retrieving the data at multiple places, and that is the data which is taking some significant time to load from the database. And then we are retrieving that cache at multiple places. But what happens? So sometimes we found that we have some typo mistake in a key that we are using. Sometimes we find more better name which we should use rather than users list. I can say something like simple users. Then what I need to do, I need to go and refactor this name everywhere. So instead of that, the recommended way, or what I'm using in for every helper function for the caching that I do, I define one file which is called, say, like something like this, cache helpers. And what I do, I just define all my cache helpers over here. So say like I am retrieving user from multiple places. So say I retrieve first user from multiple places, or I retrieve all the users from multiple places. So what I do, I just define, sorry, I just define one function for it, and then I will call this function from everyone. So what this function will do, when I retrieve user, it will first of all define my cache key, which is only defined at one single place. There is a one single source for cache key for this particular thing. Then I check if the cache has this key or this data, then I get it and just return it. Otherwise, what I do, I retry all the users from the database, then I put it into the cache, and then I return users. So at any point of time in my application, from whatever function, whatever controller, whatever repository, it can be job, it can be event, listener, it can be anything. When I need list of users, I will call this function, and this function will take care of everything. And in future, if I am renaming my cache key, then I don't need to go into every single function which I'm using at various places. Instead of that, I just need to do it in one single function, and rest of my code will not get affected at all. So this is what something maybe you can use as well when you are using caching. So this is all about caching. Let's move to our next step, which is local function caching. I also use this function a lot. So what we generally have in our application is sometimes we call some function multiple times, which is very simple function, and it retrieves very simple data from the database. So when caching is actually useful, so caching is actually useful when you are retrieving something from the database, which is some complex join or which data is not being frequently changed, but you are retrieving that data a lot. So you are frequently retrieving the data, but the data is not frequently being changed on the database. Then you can cache it. But when you cache it, if you are using a Redis or Memcache or anything, that is still like a separate storage engine. So if you are using Redis, same like a database, when application go to database and do a query, your Laravel will also go to the Redis and it will do a query for the key, but it will be much faster. I mean, but what if your data is being frequently changed? So in this example, I need to retrieve first user say multiple times in my application, right? So, and I cannot cache it because my users can be, change every time, right? Or I want to retrieve a user which was updated recently. So something like that is there, which you cannot cache. If you are caching, then whenever your any of your user is being changed, you need to retrieve it from the database, right? So this is the place where you can use local caching. So what I did is, let's see it in practical. So if I go here, I have one this cache helper, and I am retrieving this user 5 times, for example, right? And then I'm passing it to view data. And now if I go here in cache helper, and if you see, it is firing 5 queries on the database because we are retrieving, or we are calling that function 5 times, right? But now if I go to this function, what I will do, I will comment out this thing, and then I will uncomment this line, and then uh, I'm declaring one static variable. Then I check if that variable is empty, then retrieve the first user in the user, and then return the user. What I'm sure is like whenever I'm doing some request, in that particular request, my first user is not going to be changed, right? So this is something that you need to make sure as well. Like when you are doing this kind of caching, this particular thing will not be changed throughout your application, throughout your request which you are making. So now if I go here and if I do a refresh, it's just firing one database query instead of 5, because it has cached all the records, or like my first user and this particular user. And the next time when I call this function, this static variable still have a value, right? So this is something that you can use if you have that kind of thing where your data is frequently changed, but you do not want to cache it into cache storage, but you want to cache it in somewhere in the memory of your PHP application. Now let's move to our last tip, which is very, very interesting, I will say. And recently I am using it a lot. So just imagine that I have this kind of page where what I'm doing is, I have a title. So say I have a post table and I have a comments table. So this is what our post model is. So if I go to post, I have a post model, and where I have has many relationship with comments. And if I go to comments, it has user ID, post ID, and comment, right? So now what I want to do is, whenever I am loading a post, I want to retry the latest comment of that post. So if we go to database, and if we go to post, we have around 50 posts, and every post has like kind of 5 comments. So there are 250 comments. But what I want to do, I don't want to retry all of the comments. I want to retrieve just the last comment of the post. What was the last comment of on that post, right? So what we generally do is, I was doing something like this before this concept was introduced in Laravel. So first of all, I do something like this. I'm only retrieving 25 posts right now, right? I'm not retrieving 50. So I retrieve it, and then I go to post. I do something like this: post, comment, sort by, created at, like sort by and descending, which is created at, then retrieve the first comment, and then load the comment, right? So I'm running a for loop on the table where I have post, I have comments relationship, then I'm doing a sort by in descending order by created at, then I'm retrieving the first comment, and then I'm pasting a comment. So it is printing something like this. So it is working very well. But the problem that I have is, if you see here, we are firing first of all 26 queries, which is not really good, right? Because it is eating a lot of time. Then we are retrieving 125 comments from the database, right? Which is also not good, because we don't need 125 comments. What we need is just 25 comments. right? 25 posts and 25 comments, last comments of that. So let's start our optimization for that. So as we see, we are retrieving the all of the comments every single time. We can use eagle loading. So I can go here, I can comment out this line, and I will enable this line where I will say like retrieve post with comments, limit to 25, and get. So it will eagle load all of our comments. Now let's see what happens. Pretty good. So now we are limited to, you know, two queries only. So queries are kind now optimized, but if you see models, still we are loading 125 models, which is I think eating our memory as well, because we don't need 125 comments, we just need 25 comments. So to achieve this, what Laravel introduces, it introduced the concept of subquery. So if we enable this line, right? So what I'm doing is I am retrieving post, then I am telling him add select. So this is something you can do, like to run a subquery in that. So I want to add some select. The column name will be last comment, and what that will be, I will say like comment select comment, which will be the our original comment which user did. Then I will say where column post id, the column of the comment, the post id should be post.id, and then I will say order by created at, and in descending then I will say limit to 1. So I am ideally saying that retrieve the comment where, so select comment where post id is equal to post.id, order by created by, descending order, and limit 1, and then out of that limit 25 comes. Let's see what happens when we do this. When I do a refresh, sorry, I think something is wrong. Okay, 1 second. No, something is wrong. Oops. Technical things. Let me figure out what is the problem. Either something is cached or what's happening. Sorry. Let's try that nothing has been impacted. Okay, this is good. Let me see what I'm doing wrong. Okay, post, add select. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And then what we need to do is I will uncomment this line and I will just say post last comment, because what we did over here is we have added one more column over here, which is last comment on the post record. And when I refresh this, you see we are just now retrieving 25 post model only. And let's see the actual query which is being fired. Let me zoom it so you can see it properly. This is our query, select post dot star, and then we are adding one subquery as a select, this one. So select comment from comments where post id is equal to post.id, order by, created at, descending, limit 1 as last comment. So we have added one more column as a sub select from post limit 25. And what it has done is it has only retrieved 25 models of the post. We are not now loading all of that 125 commits. So whenever you are using relationships and you don't need all of your data of relationship, but when you just need one record, you can utilize Laravel subquery feature. It is already well documented. I will say Laravel subquery. If you go that, I think you should be able to find it over here if you want to read. Let me find subquery where close. This is what like you can do. Yes, where column order by descending from membership. Even you can do it in where as well, right? So yeah, that is what like I have to share at the last tip. and I hope it will be useful to everyone. And yeah, thank you. It's all over back to Bhavesh. Thank you, everyone. After this, I will be open sourcing this code, so you will have access to the code, to this repo. Uh, and I think we'll be sharing it via tweet as well, so you guys can access and see the code, like how it is actually working. Yep. Thank you.
Very nice session by Mitul, and really I also learned very nice tips like sorting the asset tips, eagle loading, combined where condition, two base function, append, single source of caching, power of subquery, local function caching. Really, it was very powerful session by Mitul, and also you see how we debug in the live also. So let's move to our next session. Uh, that is about. Hi Abbas.
Hi Bhavesh.
Okay, let me introduce to Abbas. Abbas have overall 14 years of experience in PHP and overall 8 years of experience in Laravel. And he is an active member of Laravel Nagpur. And that's of all. And he today will discuss about the Laravel frontend with Vue.js. Many of us were try to do jQuery. Myself, I'm doing jQuery and Blade, and this session is also for me. I will also learn like Vue.js from the Abbas, and in my next project, I will surely implement. And that's a good topic for this session. Abbas, over to you.
Thank you, Bhavesh. Hello, everyone. A very good morning to everyone from Nagpur. Um, so let's begin. I'll now share my screen. Please let me know if you all can see my screen in comments. Okay, so let's begin. So today we are going to see how to use Vue.js along with Laravel. All of us, I presume, my assumption for this talk is that most of us are Laravel developers with some degree of knowledge of Laravel, if not expert, but at least some beginner level knowledge of Laravel is there amongst all the participants. And the second assumption I'm making here is some of you or most of you might have heard about Vue.js, and I'll be keeping this talk very basic, just introducing what Vue.js is, and let's see how it goes. So something about me, as Bhavesh said, I am Abbas Ali, and I work at Renium Systems, Nagpur, Maharashtra, and I have been coding since 2004. And I have published a book, and I've contributed to a few open source projects. You can find me. I've given my Twitter and website address there. You can find me on Twitter or hit me up on my website. So let's see what we are going to cover today. As I mentioned, I'll be keeping this very basic to begin with. So I'll introduce you to Vue.js. We'll see, as with any programming language or any new framework or library, we will do a hello world program in Vue.js. Then we will see what is data binding in Vue.js, what are directives and event binding in Vue.js, what are methods in Vue.js, how to write control structures like if, else, and all those control structures in Vue.js, and how to build Vue.js components. After we know these basic topics, then what we'll try to do is build a very simple Laravel application along with Vue.js, wherein the backend will be in Laravel and the front end, that is the web page that you see in the browser, that will be built using Vue.js. So let's begin. So first, what is Vue.js? Vue.js is a progressive JavaScript framework used to develop interactive web interfaces. So now, what do we mean? What is the meaning of progressive? The word progressive means it's implemented as additional markup to the HTML. It is basically a template model bound to a data model. If the model is updated, the browser's HTML is updated. That is, it reacts to the model updates. This is why Vue.js is called as reactive JavaScript framework. When you update the data stored in the Vue.js model, it automatically updates the HTML bound to that data. This makes the whole user interface really interactive. You don't need to reload your web pages to see the updated data. Everything happens instantly right there in the browser. Now, some properties of Vue.js, it is very approachable. If you know HTML and JavaScript, Vue.js is easily approachable. You don't need to learn any new language. It is pure JavaScript. The syntax is very similar to the languages that you already know. It's the closest to HTML and JavaScript basics. It keeps everything very basic. So it will feel very familiar to you all. Amongst all the reactive JavaScript frameworks like Angular, React.js, it has the easiest learning curve amongst all popular JavaScript frameworks. So if some of you already know React.js or AngularJS, you will feel that Vue.js's learning curve is very easy. It's not as steep as Angular or React. Vue.js is very versatile. It can be used in any kind of web application, be it a single page website or a complex web application having hundreds and thousands of pages. It just works. You can use it on your personal hobby websites as well as enterprise level complex web applications. Last but not the least, it is highly performant. It is just 20 KB when it is minified and gzipped. So if you use it in your web applications, there's not much load to there isn't many KBs to download, and it is blazing fast. It works with something called as virtual DOM. Virtual DOM is just simply a JavaScript object model which represents the document object model. So whatever your HTML is, that is represented in Vue.js as a JavaScript object. So now enough of talking, let's see it in action. Let's get started. As promised, first, as with any programming language or framework, let's do a hello world application. What I'll be doing is first on the slide, I'll quickly explain you what's happening here, and then we will actually go and try out this in practical. So this is your HTML DOM. What you need to do is simply create a div with ID, any ID you want to give it. For example, I've given it app here. And all your HTML inside this div, whatever HTML you write inside this div, that will then be bound to the Vue.js model. Now, to bind this div to the Vue.js model, what needs to be done in JavaScript is simply create a new Vue object and pass it some options. In the options, you need to first give it the element that it needs to bound to. So we have given here hash app. That means bound this Vue.js object with the div with ID app. Then whatever data you want in that model, you have to put all the data in an object data, call it data, and then you can have key value pairs inside this. So when this is done, what happens is when this web page is loaded in web browser, Vue.js will bind this model, this object, Vue.js Vue object to this div, and then all the variables, all the properties that are written inside this data JSON object, they are interpolated dynamically in the DOM. So this title will be replaced with "Hello World" when you render this web page. Now let's
Hello,
see.
Abbas.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you zoom your screen as the attendees are asking to zoom it, if little bit possible for the example? Okay, that's enough. That's enough.
Okay. So let's see this hello world example in practical now. I'll. Can you please let me know if the code is visible properly? Its size is proper or not?
Can you zoom it a little bit more? Okay, that's enough.
Okay. So what I did is this is a very simple web page. There is nothing in it. I am just using CSS, Bootstrap CSS to give it some styling, and I've included the Vue.js library from the CDN. So if I render this page, you won't see anything right now. Now let's write that hello world program. So we will write title like this. So this is the Vue.js variable, you can say. Then we will write data, title, hello world. Now, when I reload this web page, what will happen? This title will be replaced with hello world. Let's see. Here you go. Similarly, you can add more properties to this object. Let's say content. If you want to display the content, you simply need to it like this. There you go. Okay, so this was the very basic Vue.js hello world example. There's nothing much happening here. We simply instantiated Vue object, put some data properties in it, and rendered those properties in the DOM. That's it. Now let's move on. So here, basically what I mentioned is we can use as many properties as we want in the data object. So this will render title and content as we have seen. Next, let's see what is data binding. Let's say we have an anchor link, ahref this, and what you want to do is this href you need to make it dynamic. Let's say it is coming from database or anywhere. You want to change this into a variable and bound to this Vue.js data instance, Vue.js instance. So for this, what we need to do simply is you need to change href and put a colon in front of this. What happens by doing this is Vue.js binds the href attribute with the Vue instance. And now the value of this href will not be hard-coded URL, but we will simply write whatever data property we are using here. We will write that name in here. What will happen now is when this page is rendered, this attribute is dynamically replaced with the actual value of this data property. Let's see. So I will simply write so if I click this now, it takes me to the intended website. So this is called as data binding. We are binding the data, Vue.js instances data, with the href attribute of the DOM of this A element. Let's move on. Now let's see what is two-way data binding. Now earlier what we saw, it was one-way data binding. That is, whenever we changed this data, it was updating the DOM. Okay, I forgot to show you one thing. Now let me revert this quickly. Now let's see whether this Vue.js instance is really reactive or not. So what we will do is we will somehow change the title and it should update the DOM instantly. For that, let's simply collect this in a variable called as VM. So this Vue.js instance will now be VM object. If I reload this now, it's working. Now, if in console I write VM dot title, you can see it prints hello world. So this object gets all whatever is present in this data JSON object. All these properties are directly accessible through the VM object. So if I write VM dot title, it will print hello world, and the same is printed here. Now, if I want to change this variable, this data property, what I can do is simply VM dot title equals to change world. Now, as soon as I do this, what should happen is, since Vue.js is reactive, this value of this property will change and it should automatically update the H3. Let's see whether that happens or not. You saw it changed instantly. If I change it again, updates. So this is how Vue.js's reactivity works. If you change the data property, wherever that property has been used in the DOM, all those variables will get updated. This is called as string interpolation and reactivity. If you were using jQuery, then what you will have to do, if some JavaScript variable is changing, then what you normally do is you get all the elements like H3 or whatever, and then you manually do it like this, new value, something like this, correct? But in Vue.js, that doesn't need to happen. It happens automatically. And in jQuery, if the same value is printed as, let's say, in two different elements, two different HTML objects, then you will have to do it at two times, for example. But in Vue.js, let's see. Hello worlds. If I change the title, all three will change instantly. Now let's move on. Let's see two-way data binding. So this was one-way data binding wherein you were changing the Vue.js data property and it was updating the DOM. Now for two-way, what should happen is if you change the DOM, it should update the Vue.js data property. Let's see how that works. We have an input here, simple input, name is name. Now what we want is whenever you change the value of this input, it should update the data property so that this data is bound to this input in two-way data binding. If you change this input, it should change data property. If you change data property, it should change input. Let's see how that works. For that, you simply need to add a directive. This is called as this directive, Vue.js directive, v hyphen, and there are many directories like v-on, v-if, v-else. For now, we are looking at v-model. You just need to add this attribute, which is called as directive, and give it a name, and this name is the data property name. What this does is it bounds this input to this data property. Now, whenever you update this input, it will automatically update the name property in the data. And whenever you update this name, it will update the input. Let's see how this works. So I'll remove it from here. Okay, I'll reload this. You can see input came in pre-filled with Abbas Ali. Why? Because this name is bound to this input. Now to show you the reactivity, two-way reactivity, let's change this Abbas to, let's say, Bhavesh. Now, if I do vm.name, you see it shows Bhavesh. That means if you change this input, it updates the name property in the view instance. If I change it to, let's say, Akram, then you will see the updated Akram here. And if you update the view instance directly, let's say I think to Vishal, you will see the input updates as well. So this is called as two-way data binding. If you change view instance, it updates the DOM. If you change DOM, it updates the view instance. Let's move on. Directives, I've already mentioned that V model that we used in the earlier example, that was a Vue.js directive. Now let's see what is event binding. So let's build a very small, let's say, feature. We have this h3 with one counter written in it, and we have a button. Now what we want is when you click this button, it should increment this value by 1. If you keep clicking on this, it should keep incrementing this value. Let's see how that works. For that, we'll of course replace the one with the Vue.js variable data property. We are using the name counter. For that, we have added a counter in the data object. Initial value we have given it as 1. Then we are again using a new directive here called as v-on. What this does is, this is similar to JavaScript event on. So, and we want to bind this directive to the click event. So what will happen is whenever this button is clicked, this code will be executed. And this code will be executed in the context of viewed object. So what we are doing in here, we are increasing the counter by 1, counter plus plus. So this will mean what will happen? This will, whenever this button is clicked, it will increment the value of this counter. And since it increments this value counter, this h3 will update automatically, and you will see the counter going up. Let's see. Let me copy this. Now we need to have a counter in here, and the initial value for this counter is 1. Okay. So when we click this button, this event will be called. This code will be executed in the context of Vue.js object. This is incrementing the counter data property. So this should update. Let's see. So initial value is 1. If I click it, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. So this is working properly. So this is how the events, when you click something, this event is fired and this code is executed. So this is how events work in Vue.js. There are many kinds of events that you can bound to, like on-click, form submission, hover, focus, and all those things. All those events are available in Vue.js. You just simply need to read the documentation, and all the events that you can bind to are listed there. Let's move forward. Let's see what are methods, functions, methods in Vue.js, how to write them. So earlier what we did was on the v-on click event, we directly incremented the counter here. However, in this example, what we are going to do is, instead of directly incrementing the counter, we will call a function called as, we will call a method called as increment. And also you will notice that I have changed the syntax here a bit. So instead of writing v on click, what you can do is simply you can write @click. This is same as writing v on colon click. Now we are not incrementing this directly here because let's say if you have multiple line code that you want to execute when this event happens. So what we'll do is we'll simply write a function, let's call it increment. And to write that function in the Vue.js options, the object, you need to add a new object called as methods and then define the method. We're naming it increment. So we'll create a method called as increment in here. What will happen now, whenever this button is clicked, this method will be called. And what we want to do in this method now, we want to increase this counter. So as with any programming object-oriented programming language, this counter is available in this object, this dot counter. Since we are inside this view object now, so to access this counter, we have to access it using this object. So this dot counter will give access to this, and we will simply increment it. Let's see if this works or not. It is working. So this is how
Hi,
yeah.
hi, Abbas. Just want to little interview you. The browser screen is not little bit visible. Can you zoom it or expand it?
This is screen.
Yes, this part. As the users are like talking, they want to see the on the browser also. So when you are like, you can do like this. When you are doing in the browser, you can expand the browser, and
Okay,
when you are working on the code, you can expand the code. So both are the items are visible to user. As the user are getting more and more interested in your session, I think.
that's a good news. Okay, I'll do
Okay.
that. So I hope now everyone can see my browser properly. So what we did is we replaced the inline code with a method. So now this increment method has been defined in the Vue.js instance. And the way to define our new methods are write a methods object and then define all the methods in here. Let's say if we have another method called as decrement, we can do it like this dot counter minus minus. Then what we can do here is have two separate buttons. One is increment and the other is decrement. We'll just give it a class to make it look pretty. Now we have two buttons. Increment will increment the counter. Decrement will decrease the counter. Okay. Now let's move on to next topic, which are control structures. As with any programming language, you will need to write some control structure, if, else, and all those things, for loops, and all those things. So let's see a very simple example how to write an if statement in Vue.js. So we'll continue with the earlier counter example. The same counter is here. Now what we want is display this h4 only when the counter is more than 10. So initially it is 1. When someone keeps clicking on increment, 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 at one point it will reach 10. And as soon as it goes to 11, we want this h4 to start appearing, not before 11. Okay. So for that, what we'll do is we will write a new directive called as vif on the h4 element. And we will give it an expression. This is a Vue.js expression. Whatever variables you mention here, those must be available in the data property here. So what we are doing is, what condition we are writing here is counter greater than 10. Vif equals to counter greater than 10. What does this mean? Render this h4 element only if counter is greater than 10, not before that. If counter is not greater than 10, then this h4, this entire h4 will not be visible in the DOM. Okay, let's see. I'll put the h4 in here along with the condition, and I'll reload the page. Right now it is 1, of course less than 10. That is why this h4 is not visible. Now let's increment it. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Even on 10, it is not visible because the condition is greater than 10, not greater than equal to 10. As soon as I go to 11, H4 starts appearing. If I decrement it, if I go again below 11, it will disappear. So this is how you write conditional structures in Vue.js. We have a v if, we can certainly have v else. V else will not take anything, no condition in here. And we will write, let's say, limit not reached, something like that. So now what will happen is whenever the counter is less than 10, this will be displayed. If the counter goes about 10, this will be displayed. Let's see. Limit not reached. As soon as I go to 11, pass the limit. Okay. Now, the last introductory topic that we need to see in Vue.js is components. How to write Vue.js components. What we are going to do is to make you understand what are components. I'll give you a real example here. The counter that we built in the earlier topic, we'll convert this into a component, reusable component. Components are nothing but you can say they are similar to how you write classes in PHP, wherein you those classes are reusable, or you can say those are like views elements in Laravel, blade templates in Laravel, which you can use in multiple other templates. So we want to build a new component called as counter, so that whenever we write something like this, counter/counter, it should display the counter, complete counter, as well as all the reactivity along with it. Let's see how to do that now. So first what we'll do is we'll write the HTML needed for the counter. We will wrap it inside a script tag, give it an ID, and then we will write the component. So here we are calling our component as counter. This needs to be done after instantiating the view element. We are creating a new component called as counter. Here we are adding a new property now called as template, and giving it an ID, counter template. This needs to be the same ID where you have defined the HTML for your counter. So I've given this element as ID as counter template. That's why I have counter template here. Then other change that you need to do is convert. You cannot use data directly as an object now. You have to return the object from the data. So you have the data now cannot be an object. It has to be a function. Now we have converted the data object to a function. Why this needs to be done? Because now this component will be reusable. It may be used on one page multiple times or separate pages, so on and so forth. So the data for each of those instances needs to be separate. That is why we have to convert it into a method. That's why things are same. Methods we have already seen. So now let's go to an example and convert this into a component quickly. So I'll remove all this from here, and I'll simply write counter/counter. Then in here I will create a new script tag wherein I will define the HTML for the component. Okay. And I need to give this a type of text template. And in the view object, what I need to do is tell Vue.js what template to use. So I'm using now counter template. So now what will happen is the HTML for this component will come from this object. this element, and I need to convert data into a function. Rest of the things will remain as is. Let's see if this works or not. Something wrong. Okay. So when defining Vue.js templates, what you need to do is always have only one. This script tag should only have one root child, not more than one. That is why I'm wrapping this inside a div. So now this script has only one child, which is this div. Earlier it was having multiple childs. That's why we just gave error. So now we have this with us. If I increment, everything works as is. Decrement also works. Now, if I want two instances of the counter, I simply need to use it anywhere I like. What happened? Okay, it's going on the wrong track. Sorry about that. This needs to be inside a component called as counter. This will go in here. Our original view instance should only define the element, nothing else. So now this will be the counter component. Just a moment. I'll simply copy this for now. I'll be wasting some time. Okay. Just give me a moment. Let me see what's happening here. Why is it not registering the counter component? Might be doing something wrong here. First, let's make it work with just one instance. Okay, what we'll do is put the JavaScript in the head so that it's defined directly. Let me copy this entirely from here. Things happen all the time. Okay. Nope, it's not giving up on me. Anyone have any ideas? Any experts? What I might be doing wrong? Am I audible? I just saw the comment that my audio is gone. Can you all hear me? Please reply by comment. Okay. Rather than wasting time on this, what I'll do, I'll simply move forward so that we can finish it on time. Okay. So this is how, yes, I'm doing hard reload, Vishal, but why it's not working? Comfortably register the component. For now, I'll just move forward. And so next, let's see how to build a simple front end in Vue.js along with Laravel. So what we'll do is we'll create a very simple application. I'll show you the application in here. This is that application. Right now, this is all static. What we want is we should be able to take notes. So there will be a field to add a note. I hope this is visible to everyone, the browser. We'll add a field where we can add a new note. And then below it, we will list all the existing notes for the current logged in user. Then we'll also have a delete button to delete the notes. Okay. Now let's see how to build this using Laravel and Vue.js. So as I explained, what we'll be doing is backend. It means the main domain logic, the queries and everything that we will write in Laravel, and the front end, that is whatever you saw there, the listing and the form, that will be built as Vue.js component. I'm presuming that everyone knows how to initiate, how to install Laravel and do a basic setup. So I will skip that for now. I'll directly mention how to include Vue.js in Laravel. So for that, Laravel provides a nice library called as Laravel UI. You need to composer require this library, and after that, you need to run this artisan command. What this will do is this will bootstrap Vue.js inside of Laravel. It will create the main application JavaScript file, the Webpack bundle for Vue.js to be used inside Laravel. And if you pass in --auth command option, it also scaffolds the authentication logic, the views, and everything that is registered and login. Now, let's build the application now. I'll close this. So I already did the basic setup of Laravel. I have required the UI library as well as I have scaffolded the registration and all things. So you can see that I can log in. So this is all done by the default authentication scaffold provided by Laravel. Right now on the home page, whatever is shown, this is all static. This is nothing dynamic. It is directly hard-coded into the view. So if I open .get.php, this entire card div, I've just hard-coded it for now. Now what we'll do is we'll convert this entire thing into a Vue.js component so that when you add a new node, it instantly adds in the list. When you delete it, it removes it from here, all without reloading the page. Everything will be managed by Vue.js. Now, let's see. So the first thing we will do is before going touching anything related to Vue.js, what we'll do is we'll build the backend Laravel API calls. That is, we'll put the controller in place. We will put all the requests and responses in place. We'll be building. We'll be needing 3 or 4 separate API endpoints. One will be for listing to fetch all the stored nodes. Other will be for adding a new node, and the third will be for deleting a new node. So let's create a controller called as nodes controller. Let's give it name nodes. Now I have the code written. I'll simply copy for now. Let's write just a moment. Okay. So let's write an action called as index. This will fetch all the nodes stored in database table and render them. So we will need a database table for that. So for that, I have already created a migration called as nodes migration. The nodes table will have basic fields for now, auto incrementing ID, then user ID field, which will denote, which will have the foreign key relationship with the users table. Each node will belong to a particular user. So a logged in user can see only their node and no one else's node. Then a text field called as node. This will store the actual node that are being taken. So whatever we put in here, it will go inside nodes field and the created and updated at timestamp fields. Now, inside the I'll I'll not be explaining Laravel in all these things in too much details. I'll just quickly mention what I'm using here. I'm using Laravel API resource here, nodes resource, and then writing a query using the node model to fetch all the records for the current logged in user and pass it through the node resource collection. So let's quickly create nodes resource. Nodes resource is nothing but the API resource, Eloquent API resource. You can read Laravel documentation for that. Yeah, you can make resource, node resource. I'll also make a model, make model node. Okay. I'll import these classes. And I will go to nodes resource. Inside the resource, we only want, in the API response, we only want ID and node. So what this will do now, it will fetch all the nodes from the database and return it in a resource collection. Let's write an API endpoint to create a new node now. While creating, I'll be using Laravel validation, form request validation. So let's create this request class quickly. Create artisan make request. I'll import the class. I'll go to the request class. Everyone can create a new node. Every logged in user can create a new node. That's why authorize should return true. And in validation rules, I will simply write node field is required. That's it. Okay. And for creation, we'll use the Laravel's default create method, and we will put in user ID as the current logged in user's ID, and the node that will be coming in the request payload. Okay. For this, I need to make node field as fillable. So now we have an API endpoint to store a new node. Let's write the last API endpoint, which will delete a node. So destroy function for that. Request. Okay, before diving in here, what we forgot to do is add a route for API route for routing the request to this controller. So let's do that now. In web.php, I'll simply go in here and write colon API resource nodes controller. This creates all the routes for the nodes controller. So if you go to PHP artisan route list, you will see these routes. These were added by this line. These routes were created automatically. So to add a new node, the routing is /nodes. To fetch all the nodes, the routing is /nodes again with the get method. And to delete a node, we have node/node ID. Now what Laravel does is whenever the request comes in with the node ID in the URL, it will automatically do the implicit model binding, and it will give you the node object directly in here. What we are doing in here is the first and foremost, we are checking that the node being deleted, it belongs to the current logged in user. So that is why the current logged in user's ID must be equal to the node's user ID. That is, only the current logged in user can delete only his or her node, not other people's node. This check is that. This can easily be done using authorization policies as well, but to keep it simple, I have directly written the code here. But ideally in large scale applications, you should not put it like this here. You can create authorization policies, Laravel authorization policies, and put this code in there. Then we are using eloquent delete method. We're deleting the node. And in the response, we are just giving a simple empty JSON response. So we have our API endpoints taken care of. Now let's build the front end. Now, what Laravel does is it will give you create an app.js file for you, and it will require the view library as well. And this is done. How was this done? Because of this command. Because of this command, PHP artisan UI view. This command created the bootstrap and all those files. It bootstraps entire view for you. So it will require the view, and it also gives you an example component. But what we will do is we will remove this and change this to our component. We are calling a component as nodes, and we will put it inside nodes.view. Okay, now this component directory is the one present in resources.js components. Okay, so your nodes.view file should go inside this component directory. So let's go there, create a new file called as nodes.view. Now why we are calling it as nodes.view and not nodes.js. Using the .view extension, what we can do is we can define the template, that is the HTML, as well as all the logic, all the JavaScript in a single file. Okay. So what we will do is we will move the entire nodes HTML to the component. We will move this entire card to the component. So here we will, it has to be done like this. You need to have a template/template element, and inside this you can define the template of that component. So this is the HTML for our component. And then here you can define the Vue.js component. So we will have, for now this, let's write it empty data property, nothing else. Okay. Now we need to compile the JavaScript. So for that, Laravel uses mix. So using mix, you can compile the JavaScript. I'm not covering how Webpack or Webmix works here. Okay, I'll just put it on watch so that the changes are automatically compiled. Okay, now let's see. Some error as expected. Where is, okay, of course, on homepage we removed all that HTML and moved it inside the component. So a component name is notes. So we need to include that component in here now. Now this should render this HTML. Let's see. It does. Okay. So what we did is simply moved all the HTML to a Vue.js component. Now let's make this HTML dynamic. The first thing we want to do is whatever nodes are saved in database, we want to fetch those nodes and render them in the li list here. So these are hard-coded for now, but now we will make them dynamic. So let's first add a few records in database in nodes table. So here is my nodes table. I will just write first node, and duplicate the row and write second node. So now we have two nodes. Now how to fetch the data from database? Let's see that. So whenever this Vue.js instance is Vue.js object is instantiated and it is mounted in the DOM, what Vue.js does is it calls few callbacks. One of them being created. So whenever the Vue instance is created, it automatically calls this function. So you can fetch the data in here. Instead of directly fetching it, what we will do is, okay, first we'll directly fetch it. Vue.js, Laravel also gives you, when you instantiated Bootstrap Vue, it also gives you a library called as Axios. I'm not sure how many of you are aware with Axios HTTP client, but in JavaScript, Axios is a very powerful JavaScript client to make AJAX requests. So we will use that Axios client. It is there. It is already included by Laravel. So you can see in the Bootstrap JS file, Laravel includes Axios library. So using Axios, we will fire a GET request, and this should go to /nodes. That is this endpoint. Now, this nodes will give you a JSON object for all the data that is stored in nodes table. Let's see if I open it directly here. Nodes. You can see the JSON return. I had stored 2 records in database, so I'm getting 2 records back, ID and node. This is the JSON object that is written by Eloquent API resource. So now we somehow want to put this data, this JSON object, in a Vue.js data property. So for that, we will create a property called as nodes. This will be an empty array to begin with, so that there are no nodes. And when we fire this AJAX request and it completes successfully, what we want is whatever is coming in the response from the server, we will get the content in here, the JSON content responded by the API request. We want to put that content in this nodes property. So this can be done using this dot nodes equal to this dot nodes means this Vue.js property. It is equals to response dot data dot data. Why 2 times data? Because this will give the response actual content, and in our content we have a data key. So this is the data key. So now this will, what will happen now? Whenever this component is loaded on the web page, it will fire this AJAX request, get the JSON for all the nodes, and put it in a Vue.js object data property called as nodes. So this array will be populated then. Now what we want is this list that we are rendering for the nodes, we want it to be rendered using this nodes array. So let's do that now. For that, we want to run a loop on this li. To run a loop, we need to use a directive called as v for equals to node in nodes. This means run a loop on this nodes, and in each loop give the current node in this node object. Okay, and we also have to define the key. A key is nothing but a unique ID given to this li when the loop is ran, executed by Vue.js. So let's say node.id for now. Now what will happen? I'll remove this now. What will happen? This li will be repeated how many times? The number of nodes we have in the database. And in each loop, we will get each node in this object. So instead of directly writing it here like this, we will replace it with node.node. So node is this object, and we want to show first node. So node.node, node.node. Then on delete, we will see delete later. First, let's see whether this is working or not. So now if I reload this page, I should get the nodes from database. Sure enough. So first node and second node. Now this is coming from where? Database. So when this page loaded, the Vue instance was created, and as soon as the Vue instance was created, this function, this method was called. In this method, what we did is we fired an API request, an HTTP request to fetch all the nodes, and whatever nodes we got, we put it in the nodes property. As soon as this is updated with Vue.js's reactivity, what happens is this automatically re-renders. So the loop is run on li, and it renders all those li's. So listing is done. Now let's write the code to add a new node. So for that, this is the add form. What we will do now is we will bind the submit event of this form. So whenever this form is submitted, that is this form is submitted, we want to call a method which will define in the Vue.js object here. That method should be called, and in that method we will write the code to send an API request to save the node. Okay, so first let's create the method. So the way, as we saw earlier, the way to create a new method is write methods and the method name. So let's say add node. Okay. And when this form is submitted, that method should be called. So we will bind the submit events. Whenever this form is submitted, it needs to call add node method. And one more thing we want to do is we want to stop the propagation of default submit event so that the page is not reloaded. So for that, we will draw submit.prevent. So what this does is it prevents the default form behavior, and instead it will just call this method. Okay. Now to get the value of the new node, which is this input element, we have to bind, we have to do the two-way data binding. As we saw earlier, we will simply write v model equals to some variable in here. So first let's define that variable in here. Let's create a form object in here, and it was node. Initial value is empty. So we will bind form.node to this input element, form.node. So whenever you write anything in input element, what will happen? It will update forms node property. So it will update this. And then whatever form is here, we will send that to the server when the submit event happens. So axios.post, want to post it on nodes, and we want to send the JSON, this JSON to the server to process, to add the new node. So that JSON can be fetched using this dot form. This dot form is this, and it will always have the latest value, whatever value of the input element is. Okay. Now let's see this in action quickly. I'm reloading this, and for Vue.js development, you all can use Vue Chrome extension for Vue developer tools. And what this does is it will give you a nice debugging window. So you can see that our nodes component has data, which is this data, and then it has form object, which is this form object, and node, its initial value is empty because it is empty right now. Now if I change node here, let's say third node, you can see it is updating in real time in here. That means the data binding is working properly. So when you updated the input element, it updated this JS object, this Vue.js property. Okay. Now, so the form is submitted, and we will write the code later on. Let's just submit the form and see what happens. Let me reload this. Okay. I'll add a third node, and I'll submit the form. You can see the AJAX request went, but it for some reason it gave 500 error. Let's see what the error is. We need to put user ID as fillable as well. Okay. So I'll submit it again. Now this time it succeeded. Okay, it succeeded, and in the response we got the new node that was created. In the response, you can see the new node that was created with ID 3. We can verify it by going to database. If I reload the database table now, I can see the third node. So the add function is now working. What we want next is, as soon as you add third node, this field should reset. It should go back to its initial state. As well as we want the third node, that the new node that was added, it should start appearing here instantly without the need to reload the page. If I reload the page, sure enough, it will reset the form field as well as it will show the third node, new node. But I want that to happen as soon as the new node is added. So let's write code for that now. So I'll go to the add node function, and when this post request is succeeded, what I want is, first I want to reset the nodes field, this field. So to reset this, I simply need to reset the value of this node data property that I can easily do using this dot form dot node equals to empty. So this will reset this, and since this is reset, it will update the input field to empty value as well. Okay. Next, we want to reload this grid, this list, so that the new node that has been added to database, it also starts appearing. So for that, we will write the same code that we wrote here in created in here. Okay. What will happen is, as soon as a new node is added, it will fire the AJAX request to get a list of fresh nodes from database so that we get the newly added node as well. And it will update the nodes again. And as soon as this nodes is updated, it will update the listing. Now you can see that we have duplicated the code. The same code is written here as well as here. So that is not good. What we will do is we'll extract it into a method. Let's call that method as fetch nodes. Okay. We'll write this code in here. And instead of writing the code here, we will call fetch nodes from here. The same fetch nodes can be called from here as well. So code duplication has been removed. So in both cases, it will fetch the new nodes from the API. Let's see if this works or not. I'm reloading the page. Okay. I'll write a fourth node, edit. You can see it updated instantly, as well as it reset the input field as well. I can do it as many times as I want. Fifth node, it will keep adding and reloading. Okay, now last bit we need to do is delete feature. So let's quickly write delete logic. What we want is when someone clicks this button, we need to call a new method called as delete node. So first let's write the delete node method. Delete node. Okay. In here we will first confirm whether the delete needs to happen or not. Are you sure you want to delete? And if it is confirmed, then we will send the AJAX request to delete the node. The request endpoint is, as you can see in here, request endpoint for deleting a node is delete HTTP method nodes/node ID. So we somehow want the node ID to come in here. So for that, what we will do is we will pass the node ID from the event. So when someone clicks this, we want to call delete node. But which node to delete? This particular node, which is currently in the loop. So this node. So we'll pass the node. Okay. Now we will collect that node argument. So to get the node ID to delete, we can simply write dot ID. Okay. And as soon as node is deleted, what we want again is to fetch the latest list from database. Simply fetch nodes. So this will re-render the list. Let's see if this works or not. No. Okay. So let's delete the third node. Something didn't work. Let me check the error. Confirm is not defined because I forgot R in here. Third node, it confirms, are you sure you want to delete? If I say okay, it sends the Ajax request and it deletes the node and it re-renders the list. So it has gone now. To confirm, I can go to database and there is no third node now. I can delete fifth node, first node, new node, another node, so on and so forth. It just works. So I guess with this, we were able to build a very simple application and we saw how to write a CRUD application, simple create, read, update, and delete. Not update, we didn't see update because of lack of time in Vue.js and Laravel. So now we have built the app, and that is the end of my talk. If you guys have any questions, now is the time to ask. Right, Bhavish? Or shall we first go with Mithul's talk, a question for Mithul's talk?
First of all, very very big congratulations. I think this was an Vue.js course crash course with
Yeah,
Laravel implementation,
that's right.
and it was very 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 detailed explanation. The most thing that I like that you teach the core part, like you talked about the model, components, methods, because whenever the user tries to go implementing Vue.js with Laravel, the first thing that the most people suffer is like they don't know the core of the Vue.js, and there are some of timeline in there are some timeline issues, so the user have to the developer have to do it somehow. So what they try to do, they go for stack over. This is my personal experience. I go to stack overflow, go to GitHub issues, try to copy and paste, and see it's nothing is working. So this session was like very core clear. Like if you have the core clear of the Vue.js concept, and then you try to implement it with Vue.js, then you will be 110% sure will like it, and you will love to replace the jQuery and try to implement your Vue.js. So one question to the attendees is like, who are willing to use Vue.js for their next project? I am in. I will use for Vue.js. Okay. Okay. Very, and some were asking like, can we have the recorded session for this? So I said yes, we will have recorded session. And really, the attendees were liking your session. They are asking for their recordings. So I think this is very good. And for the question answers, you can ask now in the comments. We will take it, and the Abbas will answer you. Let me. I have collected one question. There was one question from the attendee. Like,
Mhm.
is it possible to use HTML page in template of Vue in Vue component?
Uh, didn't understand the question. Is it possible to use
Let me again post it in the comment so you get the text.
SC? Okay, I'll take questions one by one. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
HTML page in template of Vue in Vue component.
Like
Uh,
he's yes yes.
okay, I think what he says is something like this. So instead of, I'm not sure whether this is the question, but instead of writing it separately, what you can do is put the entire HTML in a property called as template in here as a string. That can be done. Not sure if this is the question he was asking though.
I also think this is the question he's asking, but most is recommended way is to use in the template. The earlier one, the
Yes. So
Abbas
the way
has.
I did this is the most common way people do. They create a self-contained view components wherein the entire HTML for that component as well as the JavaScript is all written in a single .view file. This is the most popular way. Of course, I mean in programming there is nothing correct or wrong. It is only which way is more popular or your personal preference. So
Okay.
in Laravel world, most people do it like this. They put everything in .view files, the HTML, the JavaScript, and if you have some custom style to write for this particular component, then you can write the custom CSS styles as well in this component. That will apply only to this component.
Great, great. So let's move to the next question. Like, can we use both view router and Laravel router at same time?
Laravel router will send a fresh HTTP request to the server to render the web page as traditionally is done, which is something different. And view router, it doesn't send any HTTP request. It just reloads the next component attached to that particular router. So of course you can use both, no problems.
Okay. Next question is, how can we do SEO for Vue Laravel app?
SEO for a Vue Laravel app or any other reactive JavaScript frameworks is a tricky subject. So normally all your landing pages, what SEO people suggest is they should be built using normal traditional HTML and Laravel driven pages without any Vue.js component there. However, having said that, Google is now becoming more and more JavaScript friendly. So I believe that Google does indexes the final rendered page. I mean, whatever page Vue.js renders in the DOM, that is then passed by Google. So it shouldn't be a big problem. But still, I mean, if you want a very good SEO friendly website, then of course Vue.js is not your friend. Vue.js is generally used for, let's say, whatever happens or appears after logging in. So it is used to build the real dynamic part of your application, the main app, which is anyways never visible to Google for SEO, right? Generally, what people want is to index in Google is their landing pages, their contact us pages, and all those things. So those pages can, of course, be non-Vue.js built.
Okay, sounds good. Akshay Shah, is your query answered? Okay. So I think this is the questions from for you. Let me add Mitul. Hi Mitul.
Hi, Bhavesh.
So I think there is one question from you. Let me read it. So the query is like, so we need can we so we need concatenate with, right? It is about eagle loading. Can you answer that?
Sorry, what was the question again?
I just WhatsApp you
Oh, okay. The same
that
one. Yeah. So for eagle loading, when you want to load particular fields only, what you need to do, yes, you need to concatenate your relationship name, then put a column and then, put a column and then specify the column names or the field names that you want to retrieve.
okay. There is another question for Abbas. How to
Yes.
convert simple HTML theme to Vue?
Simple HTML theme to view. I mean, it all depends on the business logic you want. You can simply include the view JavaScript file and start building it. What actual functionality you want out of that theme? Theming is not actually Vue.js part. Okay, the CSS, the HTML that you see, that is a different thing. Vue.js is used to build the business logic. That is the dynamics of your dynamic parts of your theme. So if you are showing a list of, let's say, users, so what Vue.js will do, it will fetch the list of users using from the API, and it will run a loop on the element to display that list. So Vue.js can be included in any theme you want.
Great, great. So, any more questions, guys? You can ask. Both experts are here. Both are expert in Laravel. If you have any query in Laravel, in Vue, both can be answered now. If you have a query in Laravel or Vue. Okay, okay. There is, wait a second. Daksh Mehta is want to add one point, like is to check slot in Vue. Okay. There is one comment like Daksh Mehta want to add. Okay, that's good. So as we are not getting any queries, like which we can end the session. But before ending the session, the speaker, like final words we have. The speaker want to add some final words.
From my side, I hope, I mean, this was the first time for me to address the Gujarat audience. I hope you liked it. And if you guys are interested, then I can conduct more sessions on and give. This was the basic introduction to Vue.js and Laravel. So I can go in depth as well and take it to the next level as well in the future meetups if you all want.
Great. Mitul, you can you add some words for our audience?
I think uh, I'm good. I hope that the whatever tips I have shown will be useful to the people. And yeah,
And
Just one last point. Ajay Makwana is asking one question. I want to answer that. When we use created or mounted method in Vue, what's the difference between them? So the difference between them is when the Vue object is created, when the object is created, that is the data properties are ready and they are reactive. At that point, the created callback is called, and when the that Vue.js object is mounted to the is bound to the HTML DOM element, after that attaching, then the mounted is called. So in the Vue.js lifecycle, first the created method is called, and then after it attaches itself to the HTML DOM element, then the mounted is called. This is the difference between created and mounted.
okay, I see Abbas is getting more and more questions. Like, so I want to add one more question.
Is
Like,
it a good practice to register more components as globally in Vue.js? Well, it all depends on the size of your application. If your application is, let's say, small to medium size, then of course you can register everything globally to have a single JavaScript file. Otherwise, you can do it page wise. So it all depends on the final size of your application and number of pages you have in your application. Which one is
so
better? Vue, React, loading considered. Ankit is asking, no, Jignesh is asking which one is better. For me, it is Vue, and the reason is because I don't know React.
that's a good answer. So there is another query. Like, can we
Can we?
convert bootstrap component to Vue component?
Yes, we can convert. We can do it either manually. Otherwise, there is a ready-made library available, which is called as Vue Bootstrap, and they provide all the Bootstrap elements as Vue.js components. So if you check this link, I'm not sure if I will be able to post the link, but if you just search Vue Bootstrap, you will find the Bootstrap Vue library. It is very popular.
You can WhatsApp me or you can also post in the comment. So I can post in the comment.
Okay, I'll put it in a private chat to you now.
Okay, Mitul, you have one question. Like Laravel base 2 object uses same memory as PHP object.
uh, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what is Laravel Bistro.
You said no base 2 like you were
Oh, sorry, it is
your
base 2. Sorry.
yes.
Uh, yeah, it. So what generally happens is, and what is the difference is like when we don't use base 2, what it does is like it retrieves the data from the database and then prepares the model object. And when we use base 2, it doesn't prepare that models, and that's how it will same it will use the less memory, and it will be just php pure object. So it will not be preparing the model object. So that is how it will be saving a memory, because the model object is a heavy object and the php pure raw object is like just like a simple object and nothing complex things are there.
Okay, great. Any other question, guys? Like this time is the audience is very engaging. They're asking the questions. We are getting the help from the audience. So very, very engaging session. I would like to add, in the meantime, you ask the question. I would like to add one thing. Like, as I am the member of the Laravel community from approx 1.5 years, I have seen approx 12 sessions of the Laravel. I would like to add one thing. When I was giving my first session, I was having the fear like, what happens if in the live I get stuck, or what the attendees will feel, or is my knowledge is enough to give me the speech. So, as you can see in the current two session, for the Mitul as well as the Abbas, you can see how engaging is the audience. Audience is willing to help you and saying, yes, this is the issue, you can do it like that. The audience I have seen in the Laravel community is very, very well organized. So again, I will ask all the current members, attendees, to fill the speaker form, come on the stage, share your knowledge, and contribute to the community. Let me again share the link. Why I'm again telling this? Because this is the fear I faced. One of my colleague helped me, and I am at this stage hosting volunteer meetup host. So I would also like you, because developers are, I think there are developers which are having 3 to 4 years of experience, and they can easily give a session. They have very nice knowledge. So this is general like sharing of myself, which will like some somewhat motivates you. This is my point. So in my aim, while there are there, I think there are two more questions. This question is for Midul, for you. Laravel based to possible with model relation data.
No, I don't think so that will be possible. You can use allocan function for query builder, but you will not be able to use relationship. As I said, like if you are going to use mutate attribute, if you are going to use relationships and that kind of features which allocan gives, then it is not recommended to use base 2. So it will not be possible to retrieve a relation data with base 2.
Great. There is another question like base 2 is getting more popular by you. Okay. Let's have another query for you, for Mitul. I have a question for Mitul. How can we check raw query for relation, not simple query, not whereas?
Uh, Sorry, I didn't understand the question properly, but let me try. How
Okay.
can we check row query for relation? Uh, I'm really not
Let,
getting the question.
let me ask the questioner. Fuzzian, can you more clarify your questions? It will be answered for sure. Okay. There is another question like it will be by the Vishal Gohil. It will be good to use base 2 every time. What's your recommendation for this, Mitul?
I will say like if you are not loading too much data into the memory, then you don't need to. But if you are going to use, lots of data, then yeah, it is recommended to use base 2. Because what will happen when you use base 2, it will convert your data to the raw object of the php. It will no longer be the model object. So if you are loading say like 10, 50, 100 records or that kind of thing, and uh, at that time I will say keep it to allocant. But if you are loading so much data, There are the cases I'm using generally, like when I'm printing some PDF or I'm doing some bulk operation, because even like bulk operation will not be possible directly on model, but I need to change something, and when I need to save into some other model, like when we seed some data or migrate some data, at that kind of thing I'm using base 2. But it will not, I will not say use it every time. Use it wisely and see like how you can use it better and in optimized way.
Okay, there is some clarification from the Fazian. Okay, let me try to. This is. Can you read, Midul?
Yeah. So users colon colon 2 SQL will print the row query. I think yes.
And this part.
And the second is, but when user with post.2 SQL.
Okay, let me
No,
let
I
me.
don't think so. It will print it because raw SQL is something like when you are done with the like 2 SQL, it will print a query. But relationships are something which is retrieved after the first query is done. So how Laravel works is, so whenever you have specify uh, relationship, like retrieve relationship from like with this model, so what it does, it will first retrieve all the post in, say in our example, it will first retrieve all the users, and then it will check if any eager relationship was passed, then it will collect all the user IDs based on the relationship or whatever fields we have specified in relationship with the post, and then it will retrieve all the posts of those users. So there will be two queries, and when you write to SQL, it will just dump, I think, the first query only, like the users. So it will not give you the query, but the best way I think will be you use some tool like debug bar and something like that, so you can see what queries are being fired. But with 2 SQL, I don't think it will be possible, or even in my knowledge, like I don't think uh, it will print the query.
Okay, great. So Fazian, I think your query has been answered. If you have more doubt, you can also query it. Now there is another query for Midul.
Yeah.
Ankit
Can
Parmar
you
is asking.
share
Yes, yes, yes,
document
please.
regarding, I will say, like, let me give you the link in the chat only. uh, I have prepared one blog where you can see like how it works, and what will be the impact on the memory. I'm loading 10,000 users into that, and I have also prepared one video where you can see it in action. But it is not, I think, like that much documented in Laravel documentation.
Okay. In meanwhile, Midul give you the link. I would like to share the GitHub link of Laravel tips. Here you can find all the tips the Midul has provided. And Abbas, can you provide your PPT? We share it in the comment, because if we tweet it, some of them will not be able to see in the tweet. We can provide the tweet. Sorry, we can provide the PPT and whatever materials we can give to them, so they can get more material and they can learn more.
Okay. Right now, it's not a PPT. It's actually all HTML, CSS. So I'll probably convert it to a PDF and send it across.
Okay, no issues.
If you can send it out in a newsletter or something like that.
I can tweet it.
Yeah, let's just do it. Okay.
Okay, there is an blog. Let me give the PPT for the tool. And Ankit Parmar, I have Mitul has shared the link for the blog for the two base function. You can read it there. It will help you very easily. Let me share its PPT also. Good. Any other query? The two experts are here. Okay, someone is asking like, can anyone give the session on unit test? Sure, we will consider. And I would recommend Vishal Gohil. You can also give the session if on the unit testing, if you have any get any more, if you have knowledge related to that. Okay. So I think there is no more. Okay, wait a second. Pushpak is asking some question. Let me edit. Is it okay to put large business logic inside view component? Abbas, this is for you.
Just a moment.
Okay, great. So our audience is very engaging.
Business logic inside the component. But yes, it is okay. I mean, it again, it all depends on your needs and your requirements. If you nowadays complex web applications which are front end heavy, people are putting lots and lots of logic in the view component. They are moving the logic from the server to the client side. It helps in a few things, like it reduces the server load. The load is distributed among all the browsers, so everything is rendered on the client side. So that way it also helps in scaling the web applications.
Great,
So
great.
yeah.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, so yes, I mean, you can put large business logic inside view components, no problems there.
Great. So if you like these sessions, okay, if you like the session, you can tweet it at the red Abbas, and I have shown his screen like at the rate underscore Abbas. You can follow him. He tweets regularly. And if you like the GitHub repo of Mithul, you can star it because starring is important. It gets an contribution to the owner, like only Mithul. Any other questions? Okay. So this is it. Any addition from Akram Murtuza? Would you like to add something?
I guess it's fine. I think now it's already 1 p.m. So if there is no more question, then I think we are ready to wrap up.
Great. Murtuza, do you want to add something?
Not really. Great to have you all here in the live meetup, and I wish you will bring more, five more people, and share these words with your friends, and so we can grow together and help each other, and grow faster and grow more. Okay, great to meet you all.
So my final comments, like thanks all the speakers, Mitul, Abbas, for your time and the attendees giving the time and asking the queries. So I think like this is it. We can end the broadcast. And I think last point I would to add, like the time of the session was 11 to 12:30. The engaging is was so powerful that it has expanded to 118. I think it's more 45 minutes extra. So, well, thanks for your attendance to the meetup, and also thank for the QA session to Mitul and Abbas. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone. Thank
Bhavesh.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. So I am ending the broadcast. Thank you.